Namaste, good evening, and welcome to the Vedanta Society of Greater Houston and our Tuesday evening Upanishad class. Om Namo Brahma Dibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsharshibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Narayanam Padma Bhuvam Vasishtam Shaktim cha Tatputra Parasharang cha Vyasam Sukham Gaudapadam Mahandam Govinda Yogindra Mathasya Shishyam Shri Shankaracharya Mathasya Padma Param cha Hastamalakan cha Shishyam Tandhotakam Vartikakara Manyanasmadgurun Santatamanatosmi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadrang Karne Vishnuyama Deva Bhadram Pashye Makshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangai Stuštuvagum Sastanobhihi Vyashema Devahitai Yadayuhu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We salute the long lineage of teachers, beginning from the divine being itself, who revealed this ultimate knowledge to Brahma, the creator, who in turn revealed it to the first sages, who passed it in a continuous succession of teacher and disciple down to our present day. To all of them our profound salutations. O ye gods, may we hear with our ears that which is auspicious. While engaged in sacrificial action, may we see that which is noble and uplifting. May we live our life beneficial to the gods with limbs and bodies strong and healthy. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So, this evening we will continue where we left off last time. We're at the end of the second Mundaka, first chapter. That is, we're to take verse 9 and 10, the last two verses of the first chapter of the second Mundaka, meaning the first chapter of the second part. And in this chapter, the first chapter of the second Mundaka, the theme has been that everything here has come out of that divine being, that everything is a manifestation of that reality. And according to the Advaita Vedanta, which is consistent with the Upanishadic thought, it's not that Brahman has changed into the universe, because then Brahman becomes a thing which is changeable. And that is not the nature of Brahman. Brahman is the ever-present reality, unchanging, immutable, immortal. But this universe is the appearance of that very being. So appearance, of course, can be taken in different ways. And so one way of taking appearance is that it's all just an illusion. It's all completely unreal. The Shankaracharya generally does not take that standpoint, and Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna also don't take that standpoint. They say that we see the universe, we see it, so we can't deny what we're seeing, but we're misinterpreting it. That this universe is the manifestation of that reality which is unchanging. It's the way that we see that reality. So we are seeing reality, but we're misreading it as this universe. So everything here is that reality, but misread by us. And so in the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda and in the Upanishads, that is the emphasis. After the time of Shankaracharya, it became more and more common in the Advaita Vedanta, the non-dualistic Vedanta, to put the emphasis on unreality, that everything is unreal. And when you do that, and so from one standpoint, yes, everything is unreal. When you realize Brahman, all of this disappears. But as Sri Ramakrishna said, it's the same reality that is the unchanging immortal Brahman, and that same reality, through its Shakti, its inherent power, appears as this universe. Our problem is that we take the appearance not as appearance, but we take it as the reality. We've forgotten Brahman. We've forgotten the reality which is manifesting as, or is appearing as this universe. And so Shankara's philosophy is often called Mayavada, the doctrine of Maya. But actually, the Upanishadic doctrine, the doctrine of Shankaracharya, and the doctrine of Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda should be called Brahmavada, the doctrine of the real, of the ultimate reality. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say things like, if your finger is pricked by a thorn, you can't say, oh, the thorn doesn't exist, my finger doesn't exist. You're experiencing pain. You see the thorn, you see the blood coming out of your finger, and you experience the pain. So we shouldn't deny what we experience, but we can reinterpret it. We can reinterpret it. Yes, I see the thorn, I feel the pain, but I am the awareness in which all of that is happening. I'm not the pain, that's an object that I'm perceiving. I'm not the thorn, that's an object I'm perceiving. I'm not the finger, that is an object I'm perceiving. But I'm the light which illuminates all of it, the light which is Brahman, and which never changes. So in this chapter, that idea is beautifully developed. Again, this chapter that we're finishing now is a little hard for the modern reader because it's more indicative of the Vedic way of thinking, which became less common in classical Hinduism with the arising of the Puranas and the Itihasas and so forth. But it is a beautiful expression of this truth that everything here is a manifestation of that reality. So again, you can emphasize that the reality only exists, Brahman alone exists, none of this exists. But then, unless you've experienced Brahman, what do you know of Brahman alone exists? What do you even know what that means? It's not in your experience. You're experiencing all of this, and everything that you experience, you're saying it's unreal, it doesn't exist. Well, it doesn't go away just because you say it doesn't exist. So again, the emphasis in the Upanishads and in Shankaracharya and in Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda is the emphasis on reality, not the emphasis on unreality. So again, all of this is an appearance of that one reality. So verse 9 says, let me find the swara markings here. Atas samudra girayascha sarve smatsyandante sindhava sarva rupaha atascha sarva oshadhayo rasascha yenaisha bhutaistishtate hyantaratma. So this again continues that thought that atah samudra girayascha sarve smatsyandante sindhava sarva rupa. From that reality of Brahman, that divine reality, samudra, all of the seas, all of the oceans have come out of that. Girayascha, all of the mountains have come from it. Sarve, all of the mountains. Smatsyandante sindhava sarva rupa, and all of the rivers of all types of all descriptions, rivers of all descriptions have come out of that reality. And then from him too, all of the oshadaya, all of the herbs, rasascha, and the sap by which everything is sustained, encircled by the gross elements of matter. So here the Arascha sarva oshadaya rasascha yenaisha bhutais tishtate hyantaratma. From this, all of the herbs, all of the plants, and the sap. But the rasa also means the essence by which the inner self is sustained, surrounded by the elements. So that is the inner self, that which we are, the jivatma, the individual self, the individual being, what we loosely call the soul. That exists here in the body, which is made up of the gross elements. The gross elements I explained, I think it was in the last class, the 5 traditional elements. Those make up the body, and then it's sustained by the herbs and the sap. There are 2 interpretations of the sap here. One is that it means the sap of the plants, the obvious interpretation or literal interpretation. Another is it means the subtle elements. So the gross elements and subtle elements making up the gross body and the subtle body, which surround the inner self, the jivatma. So again, the translation given here is from him, or from that Akshara Brahma, that imperishable Brahman. All of the oceans and mountains have come from that. The rivers of every description have come from that. From him too, or from that too, all the herbs and the sap by which the subtle body exists, encircled by the gross elements of matter. So again, all of this comes from that reality. As I explained in the last class and the class before, all of this is going to say, or the intent of all of this is to say that there's nothing but that reality. Everything that we see is coming from that reality, and even now it is that reality. It is that. It's not that, again, the earth came out of Brahman, and Brahman is still there, but now the earth has come out of it and is somewhere else. No, it's a manifestation of that reality. The earth itself, everything here, even apparently dull, dead, and sentient matter, if we could see with eyes purified by the long meditation and tapasya, we would see the stoneness of a stone disappearing and that luminous consciousness appearing in place of the stone. Everything here, even now, is that reality. We're just seeing it as material. So that's the intent of this whole chapter. And then verse 10, the last verse of the chapter says, Purusha everam svishvam karma tapo brahma paramritam etadyo veda nihitam guhayam so vidya granthim vikirati ha somya. So this says, oh Somya, handsome one. And again, as I explained last time in the Upanishads, when they say Somya, it doesn't mean that I look like Brad Pitt or a movie star. It's not Hollywood beautiful or Bollywood beautiful either. It means the beauty that we see in a young, bright face. The beauty that is there in any young, bright face, which is eager to learn and ready to absorb knowledge. So, oh, good-looking one, Purusha eva idam vishwam. So that Purusha, that supreme being is idam vishwam, is this universe that you're seeing. This is all that Purusha, that infinite being. Purusha also gives a sense of the supreme person, because in this Upanishad, the Upanishads, there is a devotional element as well in the Mundaka Upanishad. Some Upanishads, like the Mandukya, it's just knowledge. But here there's a beautiful devotional element as well. So that Purusha, that supreme being, is this universe. Karma is action, That which is actionless, Brahman, is action itself, manifests as action. So we see in the 4th chapter of the Gita, and the 24th verse, the verse we say at mealtime, Om Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmaivatena Gandhavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. One who sees Brahman in the midst of every action attains to Brahman, it says at the end. One who sees Brahman in the midst of every action. So that Brahman, that Purusha, that supreme Brahma Paramritam, is that immortal supreme Brahman. So this Purusha, that supreme being which manifests as this universe, is that immortal supreme Brahman. Etad yo Vedan nihitam guhayam, one who knows this immortal supreme Brahman, Paramritam Brahma, one who knows this supreme immortal Brahman, nihitam guhayam, hidden within the cave of the heart. Within the cave of the heart. So vidya grantim vikiratiha somya. Oh, good-looking one, that person who knows that immortal Brahman hidden within the heart cuts through the knot of ignorance. So this image of the knot of ignorance, that's used in the Upanishads and in later Vedanta philosophy. Technically, in Vedanta philosophy, the knot came to be called the Chid Jada Granthi. Chid Jada Granthi. The Granthi, the knot between Chid, consciousness, and Jada, inert, that which is unconscious. So according to Vedanta, the self is consciousness itself. Brahman is consciousness itself, and the self and Brahman are the same. Brahman, when we think of the reality in cosmic terms, and Atma when we think of the internal self, but there's no difference between them in Advaita Vedanta. So that is consciousness itself. And everything that we perceive, every object that we perceive, that is considered to be jada. The mind, the body, they are unconscious. It's because of the light of the self that we perceive all of this. So anything that can be perceived, either with the eyes or with the eyes closed, that which we perceive internally, the mind, all of our thoughts, all of our memories, all of our emotions, all of that is considered to be jada, unconscious, because it's that which we see. And so our thoughts are not conscious. Thoughts are lit up by the consciousness of the self, and thereby they seem conscious. The body is not conscious. It's lit by the light of consciousness, and so you touch my hand and I feel it. Why? Because the consciousness of the self has been spread through the body, through the network of the nerves. But it doesn't belong to the body. It doesn't belong to the network of the nerves. It's a consciousness which is unique, one, and indivisible, which illuminates everything. And everything else is the jada. So the knot of ignorance is said in Vedanta to be the knot caused by the identification of consciousness with the unconscious. That means that the knot of ignorance within us is because we, who are consciousness, think that I am a body and mind. This body and mind, this is who I am. Not that I have a body and mind. I think I am the body and mind. If the body is sick, I feel that I'm sick. If the mind is sad, I think, oh, I'm sad. So that is the source of our ignorance. Now, if we're on the path of devotion, we don't need to think so much in all of these philosophical terms. We can just go to God. We pray to God, surrender to God. But we're doing the same thing as the Jnani does. We're just doing it through love for that Purusha, that supreme being, which is God. But the fact is that what we're seeking to do by going to God, who is all consciousness, or by seeking the self, which is all consciousness, is we're trying to cut the link between consciousness and the unconscious. So again, it's the consciousness of the self which identifies with the mind and body. And so I think that I am conscious, but I think that consciousness is some sort of a function of my mind. No, consciousness is reality in itself. My mind reflects that consciousness, and I therefore think that my thoughts are conscious. No, it's consciousness which is reflected in the thoughts. It's consciousness reflected in the body, etc. So that omniscient being is all this: sacrificial works, knowledge, and all the rest. Here he interprets tapas as knowledge. And that's legitimate. The more literal meaning is, of course, spiritual practice, austerity, tapas. O handsome one, He who knows this supreme immortal being as seated in the cavity of the heart rends asunder or cuts asunder the knot of ignorance, even here in this life. Vikirati iha, here itself. So the idea of jivan mukti, the idea of liberated here in this life itself. So as I've said on occasion, that's what we seek, is freedom here itself. And not many people in any generation attain to freedom in life itself, completely liberated in life itself, and remaining in a state of the highest illumination. But if we aim for that, then the chances are much greater that we will attain to videha mukti or krama mukti, that is, illumination at the time of death, or gradual liberation. That is, when we pass away, for those who are devotees of Sri Ramakrishna comes for us and takes us to a blessed realm where we remain with him for a long time, and then eventually there itself attain to illumination. But that state itself is just next to illumination, if we get krama mukti. And if we don't get even that, then as Sri Krishna promises in the Gita, and as Sri Ramakrishna and other great souls have promised, then still we may have to come back, but we'll come back in circumstances propitious for spiritual advancement, and we'll quickly make spiritual progress in the next life. So if we aim for the highest, whether we get it or not, it doesn't matter, because we get somewhere good, and much better than we would had we not aimed for it. So verily that omnipresent being is all of this, sacrificial work, tapas, and all the rest. O handsome youth, he who knows the supreme immortal being as seated in the cavity of the heart rends asunder the knot of ignorance, even here in this life. Let me just say one more thing, and that is seated in the cavity of the heart. That is a common idea in the Upanishads and in later Vedanta, both devotional Vedanta and non-dualistic Vedanta. That the experience of God often comes first by the awakening of the heart, awakening of consciousness within the heart. So Sri Ramakrishna says that the first high spiritual experience comes when the devotee sees within the heart a wonderful light, which is beyond the imagination. The imagination can't produce it. It's a wonderful light like you've never seen. So Sri Ramakrishna says, when this happens, the devotee says, what is this? What is this? What is this? We're struck with wonder by this wonderful light that they like something they have never seen before. It's light, but it's not this light. It's not the sun's light, not the moon's light. You see it as light, and yet it's nothing like any earthly light, no material light. It's not made of photons. It's made of consciousness. So that is experienced within the heart. There are those traditions in India that where they seek awakening here, and that's okay too. That's good. That's legitimate. But most of the Upanishads, and in our tradition also, the Ramakrishna tradition, we speak more in terms of the awakening of the heart. So the self, the Atman, which is Brahman, it's everywhere. It's not limited to the heart, but the heart is spoken of because as long as we are aware of the body, that's most often where we first experience it. When we're aware of the body, we first experience that light, along with some awareness that the body is still there, we experience it here. So the cavity of the heart. So now we come to the second chapter of the second Mundaka. So again, there are 3 Mundakas, that is 3 parts, and each part has 2 chapters. So this is the second chapter of the second Mundaka. So the first verse here says, Avisannihitam guhacharam nama mahatpadam atraitat samarpitam ejat pranan nimishatcha yadetat janatha sarasadvarenyam param vijnanad varishtam prajanam. So this says that Avi, Like in the prayer, we often say that many of you know that asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma amritam gamaya, avir ma edhi. Come be present to me. Come be manifest before me. So edhi, come. Avi, Edi. So come, Avi, be manifest, shine before me, come, be present before me. So Avi has all of these meanings: manifest, present, here itself, within the cave. That is, again, moving within the cave of the heart. Not that Brahman moves or that the self moves, but here it's used figuratively as being here within the heart. So be manifest close to me, moving within the heart. Or actually, it's not be manifest. Say it is manifest. So it's not. This is not a prayer. It's a description saying that this reality is present, manifest right here, very close, dwelling within the heart. Mat param atraitat samarpitam. That great support, the padam. Padam can have different meanings. It can be state, it can mean foot, of course, it can mean the great support. So here it's usually interpreted as the great support. Atra etat samarpitam, in the great support in which are fixed the ajat, everything that moves, ajat. Pranan, everything that breathes. Nimishat, everything that blinks. So everything that has life, everything that blinks, everything that moves, all of that is fixed within this being which is present, very close, manifest right here, and in which are fixed all of these beings. Yadejat janata, yadetat janata sarasat varenyam, that varenyam, that adorable one, which is both sarasat, that means real and unreal, but here sarasat means that which is gross and that which is subtle. Subtle is here called the non-existing asat because we don't see it, not because it's non-existing, but because it's not visible to the eyes. So know that which is the adorable, out of which have come both the gross and the subtle existences. Param, and which is supreme, param vijnanat, which is superior to understanding. That is, understanding is a great thing. And that's why we go to school, that's why we think about things, that's why we have classes like this, to awaken our understanding. But in the reality, there's no need for understanding. There's no need for thinking. Thinking is a lower state. We have to figure things out. We have to get our ideas straight. We have to think what is what. But in reality, there is pure knowledge, not in the sense of knowing things, but just pure awareness. There is the perfection of awareness itself, where there's nothing outside of itself to know because it is everything and the source of everything. So this Brahman is the great support, manifesting through all experiences. Here he gives an expanded expanded explanation rather than just a translation. Existing very close and moving in the cavity of the heart, guhacharam. All that move and breathe and wink are established in it as something external to us, that we are the consciousness which illuminates even the ego. Yadarchimad yadanubhyo nucha yasmin loka nihitam lokinascha taretadaksharam brahma sapranastaru manaha taretat satyam tadamritam tadvidhavyam somya vidhi. So this verse is leading into a very famous two verses. It itself is not as famous, but it's leading into the next two verses, which are quite famous, which we'll come to. But here, we who live within the worlds, who dwell within the worlds plus us are fixed in that reality. So everything here, and all of the beings within this world and all possible worlds. Because again, Vedanta, like other religions, posits that this is not the only level of existence. There are other planes of existence, other worlds, other universes. And so in which all of the worlds and the dwellers within those worlds are fixed. Taretat Aksharam, that is the imperishable Brahma. Aksharam Brahma, the imperishable Brahma, that which is eternal. It's eternal because it's not within time. Everything within time dies. Everything within time comes into being and then it dies. It manifests and it disappears. But Brahman is outside of time itself. So there's nothing that can possibly destroy it. Time, kala, is it's speech. That is, speech itself is a manifestation of Brahman. As I explained, I don't know if it's the last class, I don't think so, it may be a couple of classes ago, that this is a major, one of the distinctions between Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, and Vedanta. Mahayana Buddhism is very close to Vedanta, but there are, of course, distinctions, and one of them is that Mahayana says that there is no reality. Vedanta says that there's only reality, that everything that we perceive is a manifestation of reality. That which should be pierced, and that we'll see what that means in just a moment. Good-looking one, handsome one. Vidhi, know it, penetrate it. That is to be vedhavyam, that is to be penetrated. Vidhi, penetrated with your mind, with the realization. So it's talking about the reality and saying that is what you are to know. So know it, penetrate it. Remember at the beginning of the Upanishad, in the second or third verse, it is, yes, the third verse. The disciple comes to the teacher and says, Kasminu bhagavo vijñate sarvamidam vijñatam bhavatiti. What is that? By knowing which everything here becomes known. So all of this is still, the whole Upanishad is an answer to that question. What is that? By knowing which everything here is known. So if we know that, out of which everything has come, which is appearing as everything, which is the reality of everything, then we've known everything. We've known the reality, and everything becomes known. So here he's saying that is to be penetrated. So we come to verse 3. Verses 3 and 4 continue that idea. So let me move this. Verse 3, a very famous verse, says, Dhanur grihitva upanishadam mahastram sharam hyupasa nishitam sandhayita ayam yatad bhavagatena cetasa lakshyam tarevaksharam somya vidhi. So this uses a metaphor, a very famous metaphor, and some of you will recognize it. It says that Dhanur grihitva Upanishad mahastram, having grasped the bow, like bow and arrow, having grasped the bow, which is the great weapon of the Upanishads. Upanishad mahastram, the great weapon of the Upanishads. Having grasped the bow, which is the great weapon of the Upanishads. The next verse is going to explain what all of these images mean. Sharam hyupasa nishitam sandhayita. And having placed on the bow the arrow which has been sharpened, upasa nishitam, which has been sharpened by meditation. So take the bow which is the great weapon provided by the Upanishads, fix on it the arrow which has been sharpened by spiritual practice. Ayam yatad bhavagatena cetasa, drawing the string with the arrow on it, the string on the bow, with the mind completely focused, the mind completely tadbhavagatena, completely fixed in that thought, bhava gatena, with the mind completely fixed in that thought, the thought of what you're doing and the thought of the goal that you're going towards. Then lakshyam tadevaksharam somya vidhi. Then that target, lakshyam, the target, which is tad eva aksharam Brahma, that which is the imperishable Brahma, Somya, O good-looking one, or O dear one, Vidhi, penetrate it. So take the bow that is the great weapon from the Upanishads, fix on it the arrow which has been sharpened by meditation, pull the string with the mind fixed on that reality, and then pierce the target, which is the imperishable Brahman. So then we come to the fourth verse, which explains the images, which says, Pranavo dhanu sharo hya atma brahma tallakshyam apramatena vedhavyam sharavatan mayo bhavet. So this says Pranavo dhanu, the bow provided by the Upanishads, which is the great weapon, Mahastram, that is Om, Pranava. Pranava means Om, Omkara, the syllable Om, which the Upanishads teach, which the Gita teaches, and which has come from the Vedic times down to modern times as the great mantra, the mother of the whole universe. That out of which the whole universe has come is Om. So taking that great weapon from the Upanishads, which is Om, Pranavo Dhanu, Sharo Hyatma, the arrow which you are to fix, which is sharpened by meditation, the arrow is the Jivatma. Here it just says Atma, but it means the individual self, because the Supreme Self, that doesn't, you don't need to do anything with that. You can't do anything with it. It's the reality itself. But the Jivatma, our individual sense, our individual self, which has been sharpened by meditation, fix that on the bow, which means as a target. So the Brahman is the target. Apramatena vedhavyam, with full attention, it is to be vedhavyam, it's to be penetrated. That target, Brahman, is to be penetrated. So again, you have the bow of Om, which you're meditating on, the arrow of the individual self, that which you are as an individual, sharpened through meditation. You've sharpened your mind and your buddhi and all of your perception, sharpened it through meditation, and you pull the string in order to shoot the arrow at the target, which is Brahman. So you're using Om as the weapon, taking through Om, repetition of Om, aiming the self at Brahman, and trying to penetrate that Brahman. So apramatte, the arrow becomes one with the target. The arrow penetrates the target and becomes one, in a sense, in poetic terms, becomes one with the target. So tanmoyo bhavet, you should become one with the target of Brahman. Image in the Upanishads. So whether we repeat Om or whether we have another mantra that we repeat, if it's a genuine mantra, then it's the same idea, that by repeating the mantra, I'm both sharpening the arrow of the self and also pulling the string and trying to penetrate the target, which is the object of the mantra. The divine being, the Ishta, Brahman, the self, whatever we're aiming at, we use the mantra to try to tanmayo bhavet, to become one with it. So it's a beautiful image of the bow and the arrow. So then the running translation here, Om, the mystic syllable, is the bow. The self within is the arrow, and Brahman, the target. One should hit that mark with an undistracted mind, and like the arrow, become one with. So let me do a couple more, one or two more. Yeah, maybe just one more. So verse 5 says, Yasmin dyo prithivi chantarikshamotam manah saha pranaischa sarvaihi Tamevaikam janatha atmanam anyavacho vimunchata amritasya isha setuhu. So, yasmin dyo prithivi antariksham cha sarvai pranaihi, etc. So that in which is speaking again up there, the earth here, and then antariksham is here. And antariksha was itself considered to be a realm where various celestial beings dwelt. So in Deu, the high heavens, the gods and so forth dwell. In Antariksham, the Gandharvas and other. So you hear talk of the palace of the Gandharvas, the hallucination. You see a palace in the sky because of a hallucination. Saha, with all of the vital forces, mana, cha, and with the mind. So all of the earth, the heaven, the interspace, our vital forces, the mind, otam, are sewn together. Are sewn together by that, in whom all of these things are sewn together. That reality is the thread which connects everything here. So right now we see everything as separate existences. Everything seems to be separate and individual. And I'm here, you're there, the chair is there. I'm sitting on the chair, but I'm not the chair. I'm separate from the chair. My right hand is separate from my left hand. My right eye separate from my left eye. My eyes are separate from my mouth. Everything is separation and individual. But that reality is undivided in all of that. That reality is the thread connecting everything. And so as the mind gets more subtle, as we, from years of meditation and so forth, we begin to feel that there is an all-pervasive reality which is unaffected by the diversity. Know that as one. Know that reality as one. Atmanam, and as the self. Know that one to be the self. Anya vacho vimunchata. Give up all other talk. Know that one existence to be the self, and give up all other talk. Amritasya isha setu. This is the bridge to immortality. So as he translates it here, he in whom the heaven, the earth, and the interspace, antariksham, are centered, together with the mind and all of the pranas, the life breaths, the vital forces. Know him alone, or know that alone, that reality alone, Brahman, which is neuter. Know that alone as the one self of all. Desist from all the other talk. This is one's bridge to the shore of immortality. The bridge to the other shore of immortality. That is the bridge that takes us across samsara, that takes us across the ocean of samsara. So here in the beginning of this chapter, it gives both the goal and spiritual practice leading there, and then tells us that that is what we are to focus on, and to give up all other talk, desist from all other talk. So, well, let me do one more. Oh, interruption. Oh, probably because of the internet. Okay. I'm sorry. Sorry for that, for the interruptions. So I will stop here in that case. And let me give announcements and then questions if there are any. So for announcements, on Thursday, our usual class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna is canceled this week because of the programs we have this weekend. We need time for preparation because we have big programs coming this weekend, which we hope as many of you as possible can participate in. So Friday, Swami Sarvadevanandaji, who is the head of this center, though he lives in Los Angeles, he will be coming from Los Angeles after 3 years. He's not been able to come for 3 years because of the pandemic. And so he will be coming on Friday, this Friday, April 1st. And Swami Atmarupananda, head of the Washington, D.C. Center, will be coming from Washington, D.C. And so Friday evening, at 7 o'clock, they will have satsang with Swami Sarvadevananda principally, but Swami Atmarupananda also will participate. At 6:45, we will have Arati, the evening Vesper service at 6:45, then 7 o'clock, the satsang Friday night. Then Saturday morning, for those who have arranged it, we have initiation. Swami Sarvadevananda giving initiation to those who have requested it prior. And then in the late afternoon of Saturday, Mataji Brahma Prana will be coming from Dallas to join the other two Swamis. And the three of them will be here, and they will speak on meditation Saturday afternoon at 5 o'clock. So from 5 to 6, we have a program Saturday, April 2nd, the Swamis and Pravrajika speaking on meditation. Because in the morning they've had initiation, and so meditation is a very good subject, considering the fact that in the morning many people will be blessed with initiation. Then Sunday, we have the program at Trinity, the new retreat, Lone Star over Trinity retreat in Trinity, Texas. That will begin at 11 o'clock and go from 11 o'clock until 4:30. So those of you who can come, please do attend the inauguration. Swami Sarvadevananda will be there, Swami Atmajnananda from Washington, D.C., Mataji Brahma Prana from Dallas, and of course I will be there as well. So we'll begin at 11 o'clock with the worship, with a puja, then lunch served to everyone. Then there'll be a discussion of the retreat and a tour of the property. And then there will be short talks, just very short talks, more blessings by the Swamis and Pravrajika, the bhajans, singing of bhajans, and a dance recital. And so it should be a very fun time, a good and spiritual time as well, spiritual fun. So please come for that. It should last from 11. It will start and last till about 4:30 in the afternoon. If you can't stay that long, that's okay. Again, much of it will be outside. You can come and go as you like. And as I've said, in the last couple of times I announced it, we will have much better bathroom facilities this time than we had last time that we had a program up there. So please come and see the new retreat. Let me also just mention again, in case there are any of you who didn't catch my talk on Sunday, as there probably are some of you, that I was quite shocked a few days ago, and just a few days ago, this past weekend, it was just Friday, that I got a call Friday night from the General Secretary of the Order telling me that they need me to go to France. And this is not a temporary move. They want me to, they're posting me to France, to the Paris Center, Gretz actually, outside of Paris, because the center is in trouble and they have asked me to go and try to solve the problem, but they appointed me as head of the center. So they want me to go immediately. Of course, I can't go immediately, but I'm going on the 10th of April. Leave on the 10th of April, fly to Paris. After some weeks, when things are stable enough, I will come back to close things here that I will by necessity leave hanging and then go back. So I will be moving there on the 10th, but I will be back for 2-3 weeks as is necessary at a later date. And in the meantime, the headquarters will be looking for someone to send here in my place. So there will be some months when the center will be carried on by the devotees. So I request the goodwill and the patience and the participation of all of you in a harmonious manner to keep the center alive. I hope that I will be able to give some classes and lectures over the internet to the Houston Center, as I'm doing now here, but doing the same thing from France for the Houston Center. And they may begin study groups and also videos of other swamis and pravrajikas from time to time, as we had in the past, when there were at times when there was no swami here. So the center will continue; it will survive. It's just there will be a long pause, waiting for another Swami who has not yet been appointed. So, now let me come to a question here. Will you be able to continue these YouTube lectures in the new center in France? This news is very hard to digest. So that's very kind of you. And yes, I'm hoping to. As I said, I do hope to be able to continue the classes. Not forever, but in the interim, when there's no Swami here, I'll do my best. Again, I'm entering into a difficult situation, and the center in France is very old and very big, with a lot of activities and a lot of people. And so my energies will be stretched thin. But I have great love for the Houston Center, and the last thing I want to see is for the Houston Center to have a hard time for lack of any guidance. So I'll do what I can. So I hope to do that, yes. I too pray that we can continue to be blessed with lectures. Thank you. I've wondered if this universe is that reality when seen playfully through a kind of perceptual crossed eyes, such that we see a multiplicity where there is none. Yes, that's an interesting way of thinking of it, an interesting image. So not literally of crossed eyes, of course, but yes, it's like when we cross our eyes, everything here seems distorted. We're seeing everything, but everything that we see is distorted. And so when we uncross our eyes, we see things as they are. So yes, like that. We are seeing the reality. That is what we're seeing. Just as when we cross our eyes, it is this that we're seeing. It's just that we're seeing it distorted, done at the level of identifying consciousness with that which is just an appearance within consciousness, identifying the two. So that's the crossing of the eyes we have to undo. But that sounds very extremely subtle and very intangible. But with time, we begin to see that, well, no, I don't have to, there's not an actual knot there that I have to find and untie. By focusing on consciousness itself, I begin to see the distinction between consciousness and the appearances within consciousness. And then the matter begins to become much clearer. I'm getting into others are experiencing interruption. Isn't it possible that God has an unchanging aspect, but also has ephemeral aspects, which is part of its beauty? Wouldn't accepting the ephemeral as being the one too be consistent with taking the whole bell fruit? And so, yes, that's true. And that was the way Sri Ramakrishna preferred to look at it, that the permanent and the ephemeral are the same reality. And that the highest knowledge is to see that the ephemeral is that unchanging Brahman, but manifesting through the divine Shakti. As he used to say, that just as fire and its power to burn cannot be separated, or milk and whiteness cannot be separated, so Brahman, the infinite, supreme, transcendental reality, and the Shakti, which makes this universe manifest, the divine power, which the creative power, which manifests this universe, they are the same. That Shakti is like the power of fire to burn, or like the whiteness of milk. You can't separate them. So yes, certainly that is a good way of thinking of it. So transmission issues. What's that? Yes, okay. So why the move at this time when VSGH is just budding? A good question, but that is, as we say, above my pay grade. That's because headquarters sees a center of old historic center falling apart, and it's a great blessing that they think or they have trust in me to go and try to help out. But the sad part is that, yes, it means that the work here, when it was budding and growing and things are going well, that to save one work, another work has to suffer. But that seems to be the way that things often work. Would accepting the unchanging and ephemeral as the one, as Sri Ramakrishna did, be called vijnana? So yes, that would if we understand it in the way Sri Ramakrishna taught it, yes, that would be the Vijnana. So I think that's all that is here. And again, if some of you are still there in spite of the issues with transmission, I apologize for that. It sometimes happens, and I don't know why. We've tried everything. We spent a lot to get good video equipment, so it's not with the video equipment. When this happens, it always seems to be the internet, and that we have no power over, even though we paid for a high speed transmission fiber optic line, which was put in for us all the way up to our equipment here, fiber optics. And still, this issue continues sometimes. So we apologize for that. So with that, again, there will be no no Thursday class this week. There will be no Sunday class or lecture here on Sunday because we'll be in Trinity, Texas. But there will be the Friday program and the Saturday program. Next week, we will have the Tuesday night class, this class, and the Thursday gospel class next week. But the Sunday, the 10th, at the end of next week, that's when I leave for France. So, of course, there will be no lecture then. And after that, we have to see what programs we can do. So, my greetings to all of you. And I, of course, will say this next week when it's closer to my leaving, but it has been a joy to be here in Houston and to be associated with all of you, those of you who are living in Houston and those who watch from a distance. So with that, I'll say the closing prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. That infinite being is full, perfect and complete. This relative universe is full, perfect and complete. From out of the fullness of that infinite being, the fullness